Pat, so I'm curious, how did you overcome your mental health struggles to write a book?
Well, thanks for your question, Jared. I started writing Firehorse in the middle of COVID when most people were dealing with mental health struggles of one kind or another,
Mhm.
sort of brought on by isolation. And I was by myself up at our cottage in Canada, and spending a lot of long, lonely nights in the dark. And writing for me was the beginning of a solution to some of that isolation and some of those
Mhm.
struggles. I started writing in the middle of the night, actually. And I think as I went along, it introduced a whole host of other anxieties and problems that I
Oh,
suppose
no.
we'll talk about as we go through the course of the interview. The anxieties of fear of rejection and failure. As you say,
Mhm.
great, I've created this thing now, and now I want to share it with people. And then, I wonder if they'll like it. I wonder if people will think it's bad, and so on and so forth. So it brought with it a whole host of anxieties, but it certainly helped me focus my energy during that isolating period.
Yeah, and I know dealing with fear of failure, fear of rejection is something that I myself have dealt at a lot of stages of my early writing journey. And like I've chatted with probably like hundreds upon hundreds of writers this past 6 months. And the amount of writers who deal with the fear of like, okay, I care so much about my writing. I care so much about my work. I'm going to put it out there and I'm afraid that people are going to respond to it. And then if people respond negatively to it, I will feel worse about myself.
Yeah, and
Like
I
there's
think
so much of our self-esteem attached to our writing. And it's like, it's hard. Like the question I always pose to myself is how do I separate my self-esteem from the finished, the end result?
yeah, it's like your child when you put it out there, and you
I
want
know,
everyone to
right?
love it as much as you do.
I know. I've been doing my live stream, like this 180 days of writing consecutive live streams now. And I've been writing my story, Last Scarecrow. And I had so many family members who are like, Jared, why are you writing a book on a live experience? Someone's going to steal it. Someone's going to put it out there. And I'm like, well, technically I can prove it's mine. I have 180 live streams to prove that I literally wrote the thing on the stream. I don't know. I think I'm of the mindset that I'm just going to be consistent in my own journey. And if someone tries to steal from me, maybe I'll just take that as a compliment that I'm awesome. And I'm just going to keep creating something better. I feel confident that whatever I create, I'm the only one who can create that style.
Mm. Yeah, it's very unique to you.
Mhm.
That's what I find is I don't think I could write another way. The voice that I have in me comes through, and I think for each writer, it's probably unique to them as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Pat. And for those of you just hopping into the stream, welcome to the Create Right Now podcast. Today, we're going to be hopping into how do you deal with your mental health when writing a book? That is something that we all deal with. I deal with anxiety, I've dealt with depression, paranoia, and all the things that come with putting out our love, our children, our characters, our worlds out into the world. So I'm going to be digging into that with author Pat Olney today. I want to give you a little sneak peek. For those of you who are watching this on the replay, don't worry, I got you covered. At the end of the stream, time codes will be added to the stream itself. So you can hop to the part of the stream that brings you the most value. Now, if you're here in the live stream experience, we actually got something really cool. We're going to be doing a live reading of author Pat Olney's of his new book, Firehorse. So we're going to be doing a live reading in just a little bit. We're going to be chatting about mental health and how does his book touch upon the themes of mental health and how does his unique strategy, the 2 a.m. method, how has he leveraged that to publish a successful book. So we're going to be hopping into that shortly. I just want to welcome to the stream, Bethany. Glad to have you here in the stream, my friend. Scott, welcome. And Dana, welcome to the stream. Happy to have all y'all here. Okay, perfect. So we're going to be hopping right into it. And now reintroducing Pat back to the stage. Welcome, Pat. I gave you a little reintroduction here.
Thanks.
So, Pat Olney here. So Pat has just how long ago or how long has it been since your book was published, Pat?
June 1st, actually. So
Ooh,
still in
still
the early days. Yeah.
still fresh. Okay, so that's super exciting. I'm like, I forgot how recent it had been, but that is incredible. So for our audience, Pat, who doesn't know you, could you just share a little bit about yourself, who you are, what your writing journey has been like?
Sure. Thanks very much, Jared. So,
Mhm.
um, my name's Pat Olney, born in Canada, American citizen now, and for 3 decades was a business executive, living and traveling all around the world, meeting a lot of interesting people. Really enjoyed that,
Mhm.
but felt sort of I wasn't paying enough attention to my artistic side. I've always loved music, writing, movies, and after retiring from the business world and
Mhm.
getting into COVID, decided to finally put down some ideas that have been clinking around in there for probably about 10 years.
Oof. No, nobody dealt with mental health during COVID at all.
No, no, no. Like I said, it was a very isolating time for
Mhm.
everybody. And so,
Mhm.
if there was ever a time you're going to get in your own thoughts and in your own head, that's the time. And I tried to turn that into something constructive.
And I'm curious for any of you who are in the stream right now, did you do any writing or were you inspired to write a book or do any storytelling during COVID? Drop it down in the comments. I would love to hear from you. So, Pat, during this section of your journey, how did you like create this process that allowed you to actually start writing? And was it Firehorse that you started working on during that time?
Yeah. So it's funny because when you talked about this method and me creating it, I felt more like it created me than the other way around. I was waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning and all kinds of things going through my head, and I'd had this little germ of an idea for about 10 years. And finally, this inner voice just said, "Why don't you get up off your butt and do something about it?" And so one morning, about 2 o'clock, I got up and grabbed actually my daughter's old laptop because I didn't even have
Mhm.
my laptop with me, and
Mhm.
went to the kitchen table and I just started to write. I hadn't sketched out a full plot.
Mhm.
I just needed to get stuff from my head down on paper. And
Okay.
for about 30 days straight, I was getting up between 2 and 3 in the morning and writing for about 6 or 7 hours.
Mhm. Wow. Oh my goodness. Like, so you literally you basically you went to sleep almost earlier and then you would wake up and I would now call this the 2 a.m. method.
Yeah.
You'd wake up and then you would just start writing. Was it because like you were already awake at that time, or was it because you're like, okay, well, I'm awake now. I have ideas that are coming to me. What how did you make
Yeah.
that work?
There were maybe a few mornings when I set an alarm to keep that vibe going, but a lot of
Mhm.
times I would wake up at that
Mhm.
time and toss and turn. I think it's a combination of, everything's quiet, nothing is open, and there's no other distractions. So it's a perfect time to be alone with your thoughts and to get some work done. I found, and then I would have a chance to reread what I'd written, and by noon I could go and do some of the other stuff normal people do during the day. Probably go to bed about 9:30 at night. So I would say I was a little short on sleep, but it's I found that time of day very productive.
I'm curious. Are you the type of writer who you'll like wake up and you'll have been like dreaming of like your stories and your characters and what you're working on? Or is it like you wake up and you're like, okay, this is now I'm coming up with ideas?
A little bit more of that, and I
Okay.
think what I found at least was I carried on doing the normal chores. In fact, there's reference to it in the book. Talks about Don, all the things he has to do, fighting nature all the time to take care of a place in the wilderness.
Hmm.
And I'd be cutting the lawn or picking raspberries or out for a bike ride, and an
Hmm.
idea would come, and I would work at over and over in my head, finish the chore, and then I'd go to the keyboard right away. I've written entire chapters while doing something else in my head, and then gone to the keyboard and written it down.
Interesting. Okay. And then I try to put myself into your mindset, right? And I'm trying to put myself into, like, let's say a writer who's probably working maybe a job, has family, has responsibilities, and you use that strategy to form and create a whole book. How did you stay consistent with it? Right? So after the first couple weeks, the first couple months, like, what was the motivating factor for you? Because a lot of writers in your position would probably be like, after a few weeks of like, all right, I'm done. I'm not waking up at 2 a.m. anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it was adrenaline fueled, perhaps, because there was a real rush in creating something for the first time. I'm working on my second novel now. I'm not getting up at 2 in the morning all the time to work on that. But
So the second
um,
novel, you're using the 2 p.m. method.
probably a little bit more like that. Yeah. The one thing I will say is that I found if I tried to write on a schedule, that's usually when my worst work product comes out. If I say, okay, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, get a cup of coffee, I have to write now. And if
Mhm,
it's just not there, it's not there. Whereas go cut the lawn, maybe an idea comes, or you get inspiration from the strangest places. I wrote a short story. We were in California, and I was sitting by
mhm,
the pool, and I saw a lady's feet resting on the window ledge of an open window in the hotel, and
mhm.
that inspired a short story because it was such an unusual sight for me. And so you just never know
Interesting.
when you're going to get that inspiration.
Yeah, and I think we draw inspiration from from so many different places. I know for me, for those of you who are here from my community, I've been working on my story Last Scarecrow literally every single day. Where do I draw inspiration from? Everything. I turn people into characters. I get ideas from TV shows, from movies, from books, from animals, from life experiences. I also get ideas from the community. Pat, I'm telling you, there's been a couple of times where I've been at a part of my story and I've been stuck and I've been so frustrated. And I'm like, I need your help. And they've come up with some great ideas. I'm like, wow, I love you
Yeah.
guys.
So Jared, one of the things I really learned in this, because it was my first go through, was how collaborative writing can be. Whether it
Mhm,
was someone who read a very early and rough chapter and said, well, why would this character do this, or ask a good question that got me to thinking, or give a suggestion. I really appreciated that collaborative aspect. But like you, I get inspiration from so many strange places unexpectedly, and you just got to
mhm.
take it and roll with it.
I absolutely love that. I love that you're touching on collaboration because I think when we think about the writing journey and we think about like the stereotypical writer, we think of maybe like a writer sitting in a room by themselves at a typewriter, maybe writing endlessly for hours, days, years, months, whatever.
Mm.
How and I absolutely believe in the collaborative process. How does for your writing process or method, how do you use like a collaborative approach with getting to the end
Yeah.
product?
Yeah, so I mean, without sort of finding a manual on how to, it was a lot of intuition and instinct. But I wanted to share early parts of the work with people I trusted and knew, and so I would
Mhm,
share a chapter, my first chapter. Hey, what do you think of this? And
mhm,
I sort of have learned that that morphs into what people would call a beta reader. So I had some very patient even pre-beta readers reading stuff that was pretty rough,
mhm,
and giving me honest feedback. You gotta work with people that you can trust to tell you, what they really think, what they like, what they are puzzled by, perhaps.
mhm,
But I also think it's careful. I want to be careful not to turn it into a writing by committee exercise. I still have my own voice and my own things that I want to say. So I don't always take what people say and maybe change something. I just take it on board and use it the best I can. But still has to be my responsibility at the end of the day. So
Yeah, and I think that's always the challenge that so many of us as writers deal with. How I have maybe this rough draft for a story or maybe a second or third draft, and obviously we need feedback. And I'll tell all you writers here in the community who are watching here in the live stream, never put your story out there, never publish your story if you have not gotten feedback from somebody other than yourself. The story could be incredible, could be garbage. Either way, there's no way for you to know unless you get feedback. And no, your mom does not count as a reviewer. Your mom is probably going to love your story regardless. You need to get feedback from either somebody you trust, like Pat, you were sharing, or finding either alpha or beta readers who enjoy reading either that type of story or doing just find maybe writers groups are always good strategies as well. But I am of the belief like there's so many people out there who just love to read stories and love to review stuff. You just have to find them.
Yeah.
So with that, now what I want to do is I actually want to touch into how your story specifically, Pat, how Firehorse really tackles mental health. Because I know you've created a couple of characters who are really dealing with mental health, how they're overcoming it, and it touches upon things that us writers, that things that we all deal with. But I thought this would be super cool to do a little live story reading of Firehorse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up, and my community is used to this. So I'm going to do a live reading right now. And this is just going to be a brief excerpt of chapter 1 of your published novel, Firehorse. Pat, I'll try to do it as much justice as possible. And then just so you know, for the community, I have not read through this before. I don't know what to expect other than what Pat has previously shared about it. Okay. I gotta make sure I'm all right. Excerpt from Firehorse, chapter 1. "4 years. Don drained the last sour sip of his beer and dropped the bottle onto the porch beside him. Resting his hands on the arms of the rocking chair, he felt the rough wood against his palms, and he worked his left hand into it until a splinter penetrated his skin. The sun was setting behind the trees. The air had taken on a chill, and even though the days were still hot, he could perceive the approach of autumn. The cold air filled his lungs, and together with the pinpoint of discomfort in his hand, it was proof of life against the growing numbness he felt. He was startled by the faint sound of voices, laughter from a nearby cabin. God, sound carried up here, and felt a mixture of envy and loathing. He guessed it was the Langdon cottage, 2 lots over. They rented it out for weekenders now, and his mind crafted the image of a young father with a few days of stubble from roughing it up for a getaway from the stress of the city. There was, perhaps, a beautiful wife and some children too, all attempting to cram family salvation into a few precious days. He sat like this in silence, and the sour taste of the beer lingered on his tongue. Sometimes when he drank, he could barely taste the beer as he drained the bottles. He would just pour them out into a seemingly bottomless void. Tonight, though, he savored the beer's familiarity, the bitter of the hops, the hint of sugar and tart, until a stray mosquito buzzed right by his ear, stirring him from his reverie. 4 years. It felt like an eternity. Don swept his bottle up and went inside. Each evening followed a similar routine. It was a daily death. After some beers or wine on the porch, Don would retreat inside from the vitality of nature, and one by one would darken the lights of his one-story cabin, until finally only the feeble glow of his bedside lamp remained. Some nights he would lie awake a while, staring at the shadows on the ceiling, but this night he had self-medicated sufficiently to ensure that his mind passed into oblivion, just as he withdrew into the shroud of the bed. He didn't even bother to turn the lamp off. As much as the evenings felt like little deaths, Don found the daily rebirth of consciousness worse. It would come through slowly at first. Cracks in a breaking dam. Light. I exist. The first trickles of water. I am a man. Dawn. More cracks and a steady flow now. I'm at the cabin. I am married. What was married? The dam would burst, and the full force of his existence would be restored. It took all his strength to rise from the bed to begin his daily ritual. He stumbled, dressed solely in his underwear, to the ensuite bathroom, his mind filling with a chore list for the day ahead. As he arrived at the sink under his mirrored cabinet, he began with what was becoming a frequent part of his morning routine: 2 Tylenol and a handful of cold water. Don had never understood how some people could swallow the damn things dry, but despite the water, he nearly choked anyway. He stared into the open medicine cabinet as he set the Tylenol back in its place next to several prescription bottles with labels full of indecipherable fine print. Only the medication names and his own jumped out at him. Fexer, Don Rideau. Ambien, Don Rideau. Ativan, Don Rideau. He chased the Tylenol with an Fexer, and as he closed the cabinet, he was confronted with his image. He stared intently, as though needing to confirm that his consciousness had reincarnated into the correct body, still not fully feeling it was his. His mind told him that he was 42, and his driver's license would provide proof, but he felt as though he were staring at an older version of himself. The brother he never had, maybe. Dark hair with a slight curl tufted up on his roundish head, and he had a slight widow's peak, the kind that could be attractive in a younger man. But today, it seemed to be in full retreat. Briefly, a vision of himself with a bald pate across his mind, and he banished it in disgust. He considered the sturdy Roman nose beneath his brown eyes. Nothing noteworthy, he thought, but the eyes betrayed the mileage he felt. Dark, puffy eyes. Puffy bags sagged beneath them, and today he prodded them with his fingertips tentatively, as if questioning their reality. Yeah. He stretched his mouth into an oversized grin, confirming that his straight and slightly yellowing teeth were all in place. His tongue carried the film of yesterday's sins, and he decided to brush his teeth straight away. I had to give that a round of applause for that pause. Not for me, but for the book itself. I'll just clarify that the reading, that opening chapter was very, very engaging. I think you did a phenomenal job of setting up our character Don and giving the reader a deep dive into his mindset. I feel like I don't know what the plot is going to be about, but I think what's clear is his character journey. Clearly, he's going through a huge mental struggle. Clearly, he's going through turmoil. Clearly, he's getting old, and he doesn't. It's almost like he wants to see himself as this younger character. He's really like, you see all the pill prescriptions. For those writers who are here in the audience, this is a perfect example of how do you introduce character development in a way that doesn't feel like it's overly doing it. You mentioned the pill bottles with his full name, Don. What's Don's last name? Riddell.
Rideau.
And you Rideau. And you did that in a very subversive way. That is how you do character development. Because you could have easily started the chapter with his name is Don Rideau, right? But the way it was done was very, very well done. You do the mirror thing where he's looking at himself in the mirror. And I feel now, just after that first excerpt of the first chapter, that I'm already intrigued by Don's character. I'm like, maybe he might be an alcoholic. Maybe he's not. He's kind of drinking. Maybe he has a pill problem. But it's so intriguing. I just want to say, Pat, that was really, really well written.
Thank you.
So clearly Don is dealing with his share of mental health, and clearly this was just a sneak peek at the beginning of your book. Can you touch upon how does Firehorse touch upon mental health, just the overall journey? I'd love to hear from you.
I think, most people in the real world deal with mental health at one point or another. And so I feel like whether it's really brought out into the open in other stories, it's there for people to see. That's what makes characters interesting, is that they're dealing with inner turmoil of some sort or another, right? And so in this case, we have a couple that's separated and are dealing with grief over the loss of a child. And I also introduce the early days of their relationship through flashbacks. So it isn't all just dark and depressing. There's the happier times, how they met, how they came to have this child. And so then there are some chapters from that child's perspective, Charlie, as well. And he's, of course, dealing with his own mental health issues as a struggling teenager 14 and 15 years of age. So I think many of the characters have to deal with loss. It's part of the human condition. And one of the things I really tried to do was be authentic with it. I had a review the other day from someone who actually had lost a child, which fortunately I have not. And
Mm-hmm.
and I always worried that someone in that circumstance would say, I don't recognize this. But fortunately, um, they found some familiarity in the story.
Oh, that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful that you're able to create something that really resonates with somebody who's gone through such a tremendous loss.
Mm,
I couldn't even begin to imagine what that would be like for a parent.
no.
Have and I think I'm like got so wrapped up in the reading. I already want to know more of the story. I want to know what happens to Dawn and the characters.
Mhm.
Are there any specific like mental health, or I guess actually the better question, what specific like mental health problems do the characters deal with in the book?
I would say it's probably the big two,
Hmm.
depression and anxiety, right?
Hmm.
Everybody deals with anxiety. There's anxiety over a pending reunion between Don and his ex-wife.
Hmm.
Um, and there's certainly depression. I mean, we find Don right there in chapter one in the midst of a real funk and
Hmm.
dealing with depression. And his ex-wife is dealing with her feelings in a different way,
Hmm.
probably more by suppressing them, um, rather than confronting them. So,
Well, that is absolutely incredible, Pat. Now I want to hop into our mental health. I want to talk more about this because this is such a powerful topic. But before we do, I just want to bring up for those of you who enjoyed the reading and who enjoyed Firehorse and want to read more about it, want to go buy the book. It's available on Amazon. Firehorse is available now to purchase. I'm going to drop the Amazon link. If you're here in YouTube, you can go down in the YouTube video playlist. I will drop it in the comments here on YouTube and I think Twitch. And I will reset and I'll drop this in the Facebook as well. If you want to go check out Firehorse and go purchase the book right now, that's really awesome. Um, Perfect. And then also, so for those of you who are here in the live stream, if there's any questions that you have about maybe either Firehorse or you want to know more about like different aspects of mental health, drop your questions down in the comments. We're going to be saving them for the Q&A in just a little bit as we hop into mental health. Awesome. So Pat, perfect. Let's get into the actual like mental health problems that we all deal with. So you touched upon anxiety and fear, which are two like greater things that we struggle with. Now, I know earlier when you were talking about your personal mental health journey that you dealt with a fear of failure, a fear of rejection.
mm,
How did you overcome the fear of failure in your mental health journey?
overcome is maybe a strong word, but learn to live with and manage probably.
Actually,
I,
there's a great quote. I have to throw this in, and I forgot where I heard it from, but it's you can never learn, you can never fight your your demons never disappear. You just learn to live above your demons.
yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. It's kind of a so. I think good feedback is always helpful.
Mhm.
But even when you get good feedback from friends and family, then you still have that bit of imposter syndrome there. And are people really telling me what they think? And just waiting for someone to tell you something you don't want to hear. And I think a couple of things. One is have to not take yourself so seriously. I don't take myself so seriously with it. I wanted to create something. I'm not under any illusion that it's the new great American novel. It was meant. Everything in life is a
Maybe that's
practice.
why it is, though. Maybe that's why it is. It's
Yeah.
the humility there. I appreciate that.
It's a process, right? I
Mhm.
wanted to do it, and I wanted to learn and grow with it. And I already feel that the work I'm doing now on my second novel is achieving another level. And so I think you have to be realistic about your expectations for yourself.
Mhm.
There's this dualism too. Like I wanted every word to be perfect because I know what I love to read and I know what excellent writing looks like to me.
Mhm.
And so I really, really wanted it to be great. And then, of course, you're self-critical when you actually put it out there. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, I just had to learn to accept it for what it is. And there'll be people that like it, and there'll be people that this story's not for them. That doesn't mean it's not good. It just means it's not for them. Um, I think is how I've learned to frame it.
I think that's a very mature way of treating the process. What how did you reach those conclusions? Was it through like failure? Because like I've talked with so many writers over the past 6 months, right? Hundreds upon hundreds, because I'm growing up this writing a business. And I just continue to be surprised how many writers deal with this fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being like overly critical. And then a lot of writers don't even put their stuff out because fear is what holds them back.
That's the part where my wife Shirley helped me because if it
Aw.
wasn't for her, this would still be a Word document on my laptop. That's what I like to say. A very polished, professionally edited Word document on a laptop.
Aw,
And so
Pat,
she gave me
let's
the
give her,
encouragement.
I'll give your wife a round of applause here. That's absolutely, absolutely to be commended, right? It just goes to show that a lot of us, we need some type of support network, regardless of who that support is, either for our writing and or our mental health.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's good to have someone who can give you that boost and give you that support. And then, like I said, I, I actually gave it out to friends and family, and I won't name names, but I had one relative come back to me. I read it. And I kept waiting for someone to get killed or some action or violence or whatever. And I said, well, it's just not that kind of story. And so then I wrote a short story for him that was just basically about a hitman. And it was like, okay, you want that kind of story? Here you go. This is your kind of story. But the point that I learned
He's
from that
reading through. He's
was,
like, where's the character death? Where's the
yeah,
dragons coming in? Where's the fantasy?
exactly. And
That
um,
was funny.
and so what that pointed out to me is that you have to find people that want to read the kind of book that you're writing. If you send it to
Mhm.
somebody who doesn't like those kind of stories, even if it's well written, you're gonna, they won't be interested. So that can sometimes be the disconnect.
Mhm. I completely agree with that. I think finding what we call your readership. I think finding your readership and your target reader, your target audience, it is such a huge factor. I think if you give a book that's about a character dealing with some type of mental health or a character who's dealing with the types of topics that you deal with to somebody who maybe is like a romance reader and they don't read that, like they're going to be turned off by it because it's not their style. Now, of course, there's a lot of crossover. There's absolutely a lot of crossover between genres. We're seeing more and more subgenres created every day, which I think is awesome. But I think we have to start off with what is the main genre, and then how do we find that wide audience? And out of that audience or readership, what are the things that they like to read about? Something I always like to tell writers is what are other books that are like your book that you can find readers about. I think that's always a good starting point.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Pat, have you had a lot of success in getting your book out to readers for your specific genre?
So we're learning as we go because
Hmm.
the one part of the journey here was writing it. Another part is figuring out how to get it out there to people to share it.
Hmm.
And we connected with voracious readers and found people who read the blurb and they volunteered to read the book because it struck a chord with them.
Hmm.
And I've got
Okay.
a list of I think about 100 of those who are in various stages of reading the book and providing
Oh, I love
feedback.
you said 100 of those.
Yeah,
You said
80
that.
to 100, I think. Yeah.
Well, hey, that's incredible. How did you find those readers? Was it just like, did you go to like a website? Did you go to like Facebook? For anyone
See,
hearing
you'll
a
have
live
to
stream, like
you should have my wife Shirley on the show because she's the one that can talk about that part of the process. You know, I,
so yeah, it sounds like your wife is your agent. She's part of
Yeah,
your marketing team.
I'm not real comfortable with self-promotion, and that is something you have to put your shoulder behind it because other people
Mhm,
aren't gonna pull it into the marketplace. You have to push it out there and take up, people's space and attention, right? So
mhm,
you gotta get a share of what's going on in their mind, and,
mhm,
so it takes a little push, but yeah, she helped get, this out there to some voracious readers, some ARC readers,
mhm,
advanced reader copy readers. I'm sure your listeners are familiar with that.
mhm.
And, we've gotten some good feedback from that, and I'm looking forward to getting much more of it.
I had John throw up a comment here. Is like his wife is the marketing department. I completely agree. Go Shirley. It looks like we're getting a
Well,
lot of appreciation for your wife. So if your wife is watching the stream or watching this, Shirley, you're very much appreciated. But I think that goes to show that there are so many hats that we have to wear as writers for getting our book out to that end stage. And it's awesome that your wife has that knowledge and some of that expertise to be able to help with that. But I think for a lot of writers, right, like maybe we don't have a partner or maybe we don't have that specific role. I think it comes down to either we take the time to learn the skill how to do it, or we have to find somebody and trade
yeah.
them either paying them or giving them some type of equal like credit for that skill set. And I think marketing is such a huge aspect of that.
Yeah, if I just play off of that, I should also give credit to Jess McKeldin, my editor, who
Okay.
I connected with her on Readsy. So I'm sure familiar with
Yep.
Readsy as a site,
Hmm.
which has sections for all the stages of the publishing journey in it, from initial editing to story editing to copy editing, all the way through to marketing. And I found
Hmm.
her through that website, and that worked out very well.
That's awesome. I know for a lot of writers out there, when they think about like, okay, time to find an editor, then they're like, okay, Fiverr, Readsy, those are some of the strategies if you don't already know an editor. Um, firsthand. But that's really cool that you were able to find one. And then did your editor help with some of like the marketing strategy? Or what was that like?
More actually, what she really helped with was my confidence in this fear of rejection issue, and just giving me
Okay.
some good
Okay.
feedback. So she was hired specifically because I didn't want to spend money on a ton of things. I mean, you have to, we don't all have limitless pocketbooks to go spend money and hiring a team of professionals, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so I'd hired her to do the copy editing. So she really was just looking at grammar and for typos and structural problems.
Hmm.
But she would give me a summary of what she learned about each of the characters, and then she would give me a summary of what she felt about the story and her comments
Hmm.
about. One of the things I had to rework a little bit was point of view, character point of view writing, and making sure it was clear, because I like to shift perspectives, but that can get a little muddy if you don't manage that carefully with breaks, whether
Hmm.
it's a chapter break or what have you. So she gave me a lot of good feedback that was useful.
That's really awesome. I know for myself, I through my writing company, I offer both book editing and coaching services. And I'm always continuing to be surprised when I get new writers as clients, right? They bring me their book. I go through the editing process and I always just assume I'm like, okay, they just need the book editing. And they're like, that's what they need, right? Help me get the story. But I'm always surprised that there's a huge factor of the inspiration, motivational aspect of it for the mental health portion of it. And I think it's because for like writing for me, I haven't I didn't struggle with those same fear of failure, the same like fear of rejection that a lot of writers have. I just have this mindset of like, all right, like I feel great about my writing. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, like their loss. But then I always have to go through this process of being like, hey, your writing's awesome. I've read a lot of different writers' stories here on the stream before. And every single story I've read, there's things that are great. There's things that could be improved upon. But it's
Yeah,
literally just it's a process. It
yeah.
really is. I know you touched upon that you're working on your second book. Is that the follow-up to Fire Horse, or is it a different story?
No, totally different story, but it does also deal with mental health. Like I said, it wasn't like I decided to just write, but even my short stories. So maybe it's just that, that's just such a big part of the human condition, and it's been ignored and overlooked for so long. And now people are finally understanding that most people, at some point in their lives, have to deal with issues. And when that's happening, conflict and inner conflict make for good stories. And so it's just
That's the
natural
truth.
that, right?
That's the truth. I'm curious, do you use mental health as a so do you use the character's mental health journey as a primary as an obstacle for the character to overcome? Is it like part of the plot more so, or is it more just like it's part of their character?
I think it's more about it to give depth and reality to the character. So one of
Okay.
my goals is authenticity.
Okay.
Even if I, and I don't want to. I'm not ready to sort of be pigeonholed into one type. I'm experimenting with different kinds, even a little bit of a supernatural kind of story. Uh,
Hmm.
I wrote the first few chapters of sort of like a military type story, which took a lot of research, by the way. The old thing about knowing what you're writing about, um, and so I've tended to stick to things where it didn't need a lot of deep research. But they've sort of all touched on people dealing with mental health issues. I would say by accident, just because it adds dimension to the characters and gives us something to worry over, perhaps as an audience.
Oh, that's really awesome. That thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to real quick throw up this comment. I don't know if you'll recognize who this is. Shirley said, "I am here and appreciate the kudos. Thanks,
But
but it really is a great
still
book."
marketing full time.
Right? We got the marketing expert over here. I'm like, Shirley, when are you opening up your marketing business? You can read it via ebook or paperback or listen to it. So you have an audiobook version for it as well.
Yeah, yeah, and
How
that.
did Oh no, no, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say that actually was another opportunity for me to have another crack at improving it, because once I was connected through a mutual friend with a young actress, a young Canadian actress who wanted to do her first audiobook. It was a
Mhm.
good match. My first effort, her first effort, and I think she did a tremendous job. She's done a lot of national commercials, got a great
Mhm.
voice. And what we did was, before she went to the studio, we had rehearsal sessions where she would read to me,
Okay.
and that served a twofold purpose, which I hadn't anticipated. For her, it was helpful to get to know the story, so she knew, and I could explain perhaps which word I wanted to have the heavy emphasis in a sentence or what have you. But then I heard my story read back to me, and I thought, oh, that sounded a little repetitive with something I wrote a couple paragraphs ago, or I picked up something that was perhaps a clumsy sentence. And
Mhm.
I wasn't able to do it reading the book, because our brain often reads what we mean for it to say, not what
Mhm.
it actually says on the page.
Yep.
But she was reading what was on the page. And so I found that a very, very helpful, another round of editing suggestions from my point of view.
That's awesome. So it's almost like the audiobook ended up becoming like the next version of Fire
It
Horse in
did.
a way.
It did.
Wow, that's really cool.
And that's when I eventually, someone told me, I think it was our sound engineer, an
Mhm.
old Da Vinci quote that's been sort of co opted many times, which is like, art is never finished, truly, it's
Mhm.
only abandoned.
Mhm.
I had to learn to let go. I've read the book 105 times now, and I still think about the characters, and I think of things I could do to touch it up just a little more. And it's out
Mhm.
there already, being
Oh my
sold.
goodness. And I think that
So I
just
have to
goes to
let it go.
show we could keep writing our stories till the end of time. We could keep
Yeah,
rewriting like forever. I'm sure you could probably keep rewriting Fire Horse if you wanted to and keep finding ways to improve it. But like
yeah,
we have at some point we have to be like, all right, let's just enjoy it for this is the version
yeah.
until edition number 2 comes out anyways.
Right.
Ah, awesome. So those are some really great topics, Pat. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to take this moment to open this up to our audience. So I've gathered a couple of questions. What questions do you have for Pat or myself, for us, about the writing journey as it pertains to mental health? Do you have any questions about the writing process, about the mental health journey, or about Firehorse? Drop your questions down in the comments, and I'll be framing them in just a few minutes. So keep those questions coming. And something that I'm curious, Pat, as I'm thinking through this, like part of your journey, now that you've written the characters, now that you've written the story and you're working on your later books, um, do you feel like having explored the mental health of those characters, do you feel like it's improved your own mental health in kind of in like retrospect and looking back on it?
That's a good question. Like I think I mentioned before, the process itself I found very therapeutic of
Hmm.
writing about these folks and giving them hopefully a fair treatment and an
Hmm.
ending that people can find some measure of acceptance of or satisfaction with without giving too much away. Um, and so I found that part quite therapeutic. And then as it started to take a life of its own on as a project, then the anxiety and all that fear of rejection and stuff came. And now I feel like I'm through that, and I can appreciate the characters and the story again for what it is.
That's awesome. Do you feel like you're still do you still deal with some of those same mental health, those obstacles, the fear of rejection, fear of failure in your later books that you're now working on? Or do you feel like, okay, I feel like I've overcome it, now I'm dealing with new problems?
I think the issues characters in my books are dealing with are varied.
Okay.
In the new novel, it's a teenager who's assaulted a teacher and is coming from a difficult home environment.
Wow,
And
that's a huge one.
yeah,
That's something that's happened. I know I've seen stories about that specific issue. That's interesting.
yeah. And then I tell it through the eyes of a child psychologist he's assigned to work with as part of his like a court appointed
Mhm.
therapy. And so I tell it from his perspective, but also from the psychologist who has his own trauma that he's been working through. And again, I guess I feel like everybody's got something, and
Mhm.
so it adds dimension to characters to reveal that and to include that. Um, and so that's probably why most of my characters have some form of trauma that they're dealing with. It gives them depth.
Interesting. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, Pat. Let's see. Let me pull up a couple of these questions. So let's see. Fiona Miller. So Fiona asked, how do you welcome and address an internal critic that many writers deal with? I'm
Yeah.
like, we don't have
For,
internal critics. What's that?
yeah. That's a great question, and
Mhm.
I know Fiona, and Fiona knows what she's talking about as far as psychology. So, um, I go back and forth between it feels like opposite ends of the spectrum because I'll write something and feel like, wow, I feel really good about that, and then the next
Mhm.
day I'll feel like I want to throw it in the garbage. And I don't know. It's like nothing has changed. The words on the page are still the same. And so it's all that tells me that it's all about my perspective. That's about how I'm thinking about it. And so
Mhm.
I try to remember, first of all, everything we do in life is practice. And,
Mhm.
and, you know, people's lives aren't hanging in the balance on this book. And so I'm doing this because I enjoy it. People like it. Great. So I have this kind of ritual that I talk myself through.
Okay.
um, and then good feedback, always puts a little gas in the tank and helps tamp down that inner critic. But I
Mhm.
still will read. I feel like a perfectionist. I got my first copy before it was actually released, and I
Ooh,
found two
Pat,
typos.
move that closer into frame. I want to see the book in. There we go. All right, perfect.
And I found two typos in it, and much to my wife's dismay,
Ooh,
I insisted that we correct them
ooh, you're
because
like, we have to take the book out of print. We need a print version two, edition two
and so
now.
we were able to make the change before it was
Oh,
released.
you were. Oh,
Yeah, but it
oh,
was
that's
just a
awesome.
lot of
Okay.
work, a lot of work.
Hmm.
And so I think at a certain point you have to give yourself a little grace. You have to give
Hmm.
yourself the 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 room for mistakes that you would give a friend, that you
Hmm.
would give a family member. You have to learn to give that to yourself. If you hold yourself to an impossibly high standard, you're just setting yourself up for uh, you know, for not being satisfied with your work ever.
Pat, I just have to say, I absolutely love that. That might be one of my favorite pieces of advice you've shared so far. That deserves a round of applause. I think I see from so many writers who get very down on themselves because they have unrealistic expectations because they're comparing themselves to other types of writers they've seen. Like on social media, they see different types of writers at different various stages of the book process.
Mm.
What I always try to share with new writers, with writers at any part of the journey, is that I feel like success comes down to how you communicate your expectations of the book development process with yourself. If I think for some writers who are just want to get their stories out there, who are treating it more from like a therapeutic point than just writing it, like that is the only expectation. But
Yeah.
if there's a writer who's putting their book out there and is expecting to make money out of it, but then isn't able to save up or invest in the process or be lucky enough to have a marketing expert on your team, I think then when they don't make money off the book, they feel that frustration.
Yeah.
Or if they put out their book and they get bad feedback, I think getting bad feedback from other writers, I think that can be something that can be debilitating for a lot of writers. But I think for myself, if I put it out there, I'm of the mindset all feedback is great feedback. If it's bad feedback, for me, I'm like, I just made somebody feel something that was a negative emotion, and that's their truth. Now, if 95% of the people that read my book give me the same bad feedback, I'm like, all right, I should probably take something. But reading in itself is subjective. And I think communications and expectations is such a predominant factor for us. Awesome. And let's see. So it looks like we got another really good question here from Soul. So Soul was asking, how often do you see mental health being accurately depicted in books? Oh, this is a great question.
Hmm.
This is a really great question.
Probably not nearly enough. Now, I will say this: while I was writing, I had trouble reading. I like to read, but uh, I deliberately shut myself off from reading. I'm now back to old classics. I'm reading On the Road, Jack Kerouac. So
Yep.
um,
Great classic.
yeah,
Yep.
and I'm pretty sure they weren't dealing with mental health very transparently back in the 40s. And so I'd say it's probably something that is an emerging trend that
Hmm.
mirrors. I mean, art mirrors society and vice versa, right? So
Hmm.
I would say that we're probably going to see more high quality product out there that deals with mental health in a way that represents the way society is learning to think about it.
Completely agreed. I think we're in a day and age where mental health is being more talked about in this decade, this era, which is great. In a way that mental health wasn't part of the conversation in previous eras or previous decades. And I think for myself, like having such an appreciation for the mental health journey that each of us deals with. Everyone has their own journey. I just hope that we continue to hit a point with society where more people are able to openly talk about their mental health in a way that's healthy, and then also going to therapy. I'm of the mindset of
Definitely.
like everybody should go to therapy. And sometimes it's a process to find the right therapist. That's another thing. It's like finding the right editor. You got to find the right editor for you. Um, but you know what? I'm here for hopefully leading to a much healthier society. So thanks for sharing that, Bob. All right, awesome. And then let's see, Bethany. It looks like she had a two-part question. Bethany was asking me about my mental health journey. Thank you for asking. I specifically have dealt with depression and anxiety have been my two greatest struggles. They haven't been as much in the writing journey for me personally. My I would hit this cycle where I would get really depressed about life, right? Whether that was with relationships, work, whatever. And then when I got really depressed, I would go write. Writing for me was an escape and a release. And I always found that very powerful. But I hit these points in my life where then I could only write when I was depressed. So then I got caught in this vicious cycle of like, okay, I love writing, but I'm only writing every once in a while because I'm not depressed right now. And I realized the only way for me to overcome and break that cycle was for me to do something crazy. Like, this isn't something that people should do. I literally quit the day job and started a writing business. But that's not realistic for everybody. It was realistic for me, but it was also a leap of faith, huge leap of faith for me to just eject from everything. And I was lucky that I had the resources and the support to be able to go on this part of the journey. And after 180 days of writing consecutively, I've learned that success is just showing up. There's 20% of the days I get to a live stream and I don't feel like writing, and I'm just proud that I write. And I think that's part of it. So Bethany, thank you for asking that. I really appreciate that. And then Bethany asked a second part question to you, Pat. Pat, how does your mental health before and after getting the book going and getting done compare? So how does I think for reframing this, do you see a noticeable difference with where your mental health is at right now compared to where it was at before you started Firehorse?
I do, but I'm not going to credit the book and writing solely for that. I think we
Okay.
went through some challenges within our own family and participated in some
Hmm.
family therapy, which is called DBT or dialectical behavior therapy.
Hmm.
Learned a lot of lessons, even though it wasn't primarily for me. I was participating in it, and I feel like I benefited from it tremendously.
Hmm.
Gave me different ways to look at how people reacted to me and how I reacted to them, and think about framing things in a positive, much more positive way, and how to deal with frustrations and deal with things that when they're not going your way. The writing is an outlet for me, much like yourself, Jared. I feel the best when I'm doing it, when I'm creating something, and so perhaps all of that together helped me grow as a person and put me into a better space today than I was in 4 or 5 years ago.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Pat. That's really awesome. Let's see. Mommy Telly was asking, have you ever felt a fear of success or fear of future expectations?
Definitely. It's like be careful what you wish for, right? So, and a little bit back to your point about setting reasonable expectations. People are like, "Oh, are you a best-selling author now? New York Times bestseller?" No, nor do I expect to be. And in fact, I'm not sure the best books always end up there, because that's what's going to appeal to the largest quantity of
Hmm.
people. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's something that I would view as a quality product, right? It's
Hmm.
just like in restaurants. Some people love to eat at McDonald's, and some people want to eat at a small Italian restaurant, and they're
Hmm.
different
Ain't
products for
that the
different
truth?
markets,
Hmm.
right? Right. But as soon as some people give some positive feedback and more people get the book, yes, it does sort of raise the bar, and it raises that expectation level, and so then it starts a whole new cycle of fearing that it'll be rejected on another level now. So I guess that's just the curse that comes with it.
But I hope that with repetition, that with each time, does it get a little easier at least
Yeah,
with each attempt?
yeah. I think it's
Awesome.
I care much more about writing than selling. And back to your point about people going into it to make money, I would say of all the reasons to write, that would probably be my least favorite one as a motivator,
Mm,
because it'll cause you to think about things that don't necessarily link to getting in touch with what is inside that you want to put on the page. You'll just get in your head too much about, is this going to sell, and is this going to, I think just write, create, and enjoy that. And if you're counting on it to make money, that brings a whole nother level of stress and anxiety that I wouldn't want.
and I know that's such a factor for many writers out there, and they end up feeling that frustration.
Yeah.
I think that for me, I think the balance is enjoying the process and also trying to do the marketing and the publishing and that whole aspect in a way that doesn't severely or adversely affect your mental health.
Hmm.
And then it looks like Pat asked a great question. Which character did you have the hardest time constructing and writing
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. I mean, Charlie, as a teenager, although I've got I've had teenagers in my own house.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily mean they're a great model for the character I wanted for Don and Julia's son. And so I found that difficult, but I did actually run some of the stuff by my own kids to say, does this sound authentic for dialogue? Does
Ooh,
this
that's
seem,
really smart. Okay.
yeah. And then,
Ha
writing
did they feel
female
it was
characters was,
authentic?
yeah. And they gave me some suggestions as well.
Okay.
Um, and writing female characters, again, I live in a house full of women. So, eh, I've got lots of examples around me, but in the book, you're getting right inside their heads, and then I have to kind of guess at what's going on there. And I did take feedback on that as well. It was interesting to me, the female readers, which characters that resonated with them, and which ones didn't. Wasn't necessarily what I expected going
Mhm.
into it, but I hope and believe I've at least written the female characters authentic in an authentic way. It was
Awesome.
challenging though, for sure.
Yeah, I think when we're writing outside of our gender and outside of our own personal experience, I think we have to do even more research to try to capture it authentically. And I think it's great that you used your the children in your life and the females in your household to be able to like help develop more believable characters. I think that's awesome. So, for those of you who are here in the live stream, or if you're watching on the replay, I just want to encourage you, if you find any value out of the stream, don't forget to follow and subscribe. I'm here on YouTube at the Kaufman's Corner channel. I come out with daily writing live streams, and you should definitely, absolutely follow Pat over on his Facebook. I have all of his links, all the links to purchase his book Firehorse down in the YouTube description below. So make sure you're following, subscribing for more writing advice, more writing stuff, and for when Pat comes out with his second book. Um, Now, as I get to this last section of the podcast, I'm curious, Pat. So I know you said that you're just wrapping up, or that you're working on future novels. Is that uh, is that where your focus is at right now? Coming out with book two?
Yeah, and also a collection of short stories.
Okay.
And because I've had all these different ideas, I've written probably 15,000 words in another book that I may never finish. So I'm experimenting.
Okay.
I've written 5,000 words of another book, or 6,000 as a concept.
Hmm.
And but maybe just to backtrack to one point you made about success and fear of success as well. One thing that I see with some of my favorite authors is once they got successful, they felt they had to write that exact template, that kind of book,
Hmm.
so that the many writers or many readers that were buying their books would know what they were getting. And I,
Hmm.
I want to be able to experiment across genres and try different things out. And that's what I'm looking to do as I go forward, is continue to experiment. In fact, I'm considering
Ooh.
not publishing, but providing the first few chapters of two alternative stories to my followers and saying, read these and tell me which one you would prefer that I develop a little further, and
That's a
engaging
great
them in that way.
strategy. Yeah, that's really interesting. And then you would basically use that kind of feedback into like, okay, this is the next book that I want to develop further.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So I'm open.
Yeah, I know. I think I use a similar strategy with my audience where I'm like, hey, how did you feel about this character, this plot line? And that kind of tells me like, okay, well, maybe I expand that out. Or if I get crickets, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe people don't like that.
Right.
Awesome. And I totally forgot, Pat. I wanted to just do a quick call out. I know the proceeds from Firehorse goes to a specific charity. Could you talk a
Yes.
little bit about this? I want
Sure.
to share this with our audience. This is really powerful.
We decided to donate all of the royalties that we receive from any of the formats of the book to NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's a U.S. based organization. Does a lot of outreach, especially to younger people, and a lot of research, but also a lot of support services. And it's a well recognized charity, highly ranked. When you look at the transparency index and all those things, the money gets deployed and used for good work. And I always wondered whether social media was a net positive for society. I think the jury's out. There's a lot of great things like what we're doing today
Hmm.
that come from it, and it connects people with similar minded people.
Hmm.
But there's a dark side too, especially for teenagers. And so I wanted to
Hmm.
kind of offset maybe a little bit of the fact that I'm using social media to connect with people for myself to make some good come of it.
And I think that's absolutely beautiful. I think that's incredible. Um, NAMI. So can you once more, what's the acronym for the organization stand for?
Yeah, it's the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Perfect.
And
And I know if you're here on YouTube, it's linked down in the video description below. Definitely worth checking out. And so you said all the royalties are donated to this organization.
yeah,
Uh,
certainly for 2024, that was our initial scope, and then we'll
okay.
share the information as we get to the end of the year. Um, we'll share information with my followers on how that's going.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Pat. Now, before I let you get going, so if you're here in the live stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be hopping into my daily writing sprint next. Those of you know, I'm at a crazy part in my own story. But before I let you go, Pat, I always have to ask all my guests this one question. If tomorrow was your last chapter in the book of life, you got hit by a car and that was it, and you could leave writers with one quote to remember you by, what would that quote be?
Oh my gosh. um, I would say don't wait to try something that you've always wanted to try. Don't I always wanted to try writing, and I should have tried 10 years ago or 15 years ago when I first thought about it. Don't wait. Do it now. Do it now. Take the plunge. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. But the worst failure is to not try at all. So don't put it off.
Pat, that's an amazing quote. Thank you so much. I just want to thank you again for taking the time to sit down with me today. Our audience has really loved this conversation about mental health, and I know they really appreciated hearing from your book and hearing your unique perspective. So I just really want to thank you and appreciate the fact that you sat down and chatted with me today. And it's been a great conversation. I'll have to Sounds like we'll have to have you back and talk about more mental health in the future.
I'd love that. Thanks for having me, Jared.
Awesome. I'll let you get going, Pat. Thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks all.
Awesome. So, thank you all for joining me in that. What a great conversation. I want to just personally thank you if you've been active in the comments. I know so many of you were sharing your unique feedback, your unique perspective as it pertained to your mental health journey. I've saw so many great strategies about the writing process. I tried to share as many as possible, but I just want to say we saw all of them. And I know I'm definitely going to continue to review them. And I know everything that you have shared has really, really been beneficial. So thank you so much for that. And once again, if you found any value from this stream, don't forget to follow and subscribe. I do daily writing live streams. We have 4 separate shows. Kauffman Writes, where it's a casual writing community where we do writing sprints every day. Obviously we have our podcast where I bring in writing professionals and published authors. I do the story time segment where we read from best-selling novels. And then our most popular stream is the Saturday show, the Story and Critique Show, where writers from the community will send their stories. And we do live readings and live critiques. So make sure that if you want feedback on your story, or you just want to be involved in this really cool, positive, growing writer community, that you tap that follow button or you tap that subscribe button, and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, beautiful. And with that being said, I'm going to hop into my daily writing sprint because I am at a crazy part in Last Scarecrow. Now, for those of you who've been joining me in the journey, Last Scarecrow is a fantasy novel. I am 81% of the way into the novel, and we're at a very huge, I'm just telling you, for those of you who've been with me, I'm at a huge emotional plot point that's preceding the climax. So I definitely encourage you to kick back, relax if you want to read along, as my pixie character might be dying. Pebble might be at her end. So definitely join me as I pull up mine. But let's say you're feeling like super creative and very inspired to write. Join me in the writing journey. Join me in this writing sprint where, because I want to make some good progress in my story, I'm going to be doing a 30-minute sprint. And I highly encourage you, whether you're working on brainstorming, writing, or editing, to come join me in the sprint. Let's be creative and let's get something out today. Perfect. So I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to throw up the fantasy vibe music and we are going to get right into it. I have up here where we're at in our story. And I'll pull this up for those of you who want to see what had just happened. Awesome. All right. So I got 30 minutes on the clock and it's time to write now.
song, destiny to see. Stand and rise, face the dark, light the skies, leave your mark. Eyes on the prize, heart beats hard, dreams to realize. Played every card, the wind whispers brave, the stars guide the way. No soul left to save, time to make them pay. Eyes on the prize, heart beats hard, dreams to realize. Playing every card, the wind whispers brave, the stars guide the way. No soul left to save, time to make them pay. Time to make them pay. Stand and rise, face the dark, light the skies, leave your mark. The hero song, destiny to see. Stand and rise, face the dark, light the skies, leave your mark. Eyes on the prize, heart beats hard, dreams to realize, playing every card. The wind whispers brave, the stars guide the way, no soul left to save. Time to make
Wow, absolutely amazing. Woo, I'm so excited. Oh, wow. Writing sprint done. Where's the all right, wow, writing sprint done. Oh my god, that was such a intense moment for my characters. Oh my god. I think I almost started to tear up for a second there, like writing this. This was a highly emotional, dramatic moment for Scarecrow and Pebble. And I've been working towards this moment for a while. I like I rushed the action a little bit because I wanted to get through this. I really wanted to get to this emotional moment, but like I am so happy with how it came out. Oh my goodness. I've been envisioning that clearly Pebble's been broken and beaten and destroyed as she's basically sent hurtling over the side of the island towards a lake of magma below. Scarecrow, who has 100% been captured every single point of the story, wasn't going to allow her to die this time, even though, like, what the hell is he going to do? He literally dove off the edge of the cliff after her, if not to just die with her. And he plunged through the air, grabbed her, and basically they shared a moment as they're falling towards their death, towards this lake of magma far below, expecting to die. And Scarecrow's like, at least in your last moment, I don't want you to be in pain. So he uses his memory ability to try to help her. And through that, he finally helps her remember the last thing that she had forgotten this entire story. Pebble, the pixie, finally remembered how to fly. And that's how this section. Oh man, gave me chills. I love what I wrote. Oh, so much fun. And this is just even one moment. Like, oh, we're not even at the climax yet. So, oof. Clearly, I'm very happy. I'm very happy with how that story section came out. So, how did the writing sprint treat? Oh, were you guys able to get some writing done? I felt very, very successful. Clearly, let's see. So I just finished my latest fanfic, aside from final edits, and which I can do later. I'm done after 6 days and 23 chapters. Woo! That's great progress. Absolutely great progress. So thank you for sharing that. Really happy that you're making good efforts with your story. That's amazing. Fluffy sprinkles. Thank you. Thank you, Jared and Pat. Yes. We had an absolutely great conversation today. So if you just hopped into the stream a little late and you missed out on the Create Right Now podcast, on the portion about mental health, I had a great conversation with Pat about the different areas of how we overcome our mental health to write a book. We had some great topics, great conversations. So definitely make sure that you go back to the beginning when the after the stream and you check out the full interview. We definitely had a great talk and it was very, very valuable. Nil asked a great question. I don't know if you want to share. Do you have non-writing day jobs? How do you keep so consistent with streams with work-life balance? So, Nil, I'm actually happy to answer this because this is a really great question. So, this is my second time quitting my job completely to try this, to start a writing business. Something that I struggled with over the past 10 years was trying to balance pursuing my writing, doing writing freelancing as a freelance ghostwriter with having a day job. And a lot of people, a lot of writers are able to find that balance. And for me, there was times where I was very successful, where I would work 40, 60-hour weeks, and then I could set aside 20, 30 hours to just writing. And then there were times where I was wildly unsuccessful. And I hit a point with my journey where like I'm the type of person who like it a lot of people out there can be fine with their day job and doing getting through it. But I'm the type of person where I have to be fulfilled with my creative endeavors as 100% of what my job is. So I ended up hitting a lot of obstacles in those early parts of my journey because I couldn't make enough money from it. And so then I ended up going back to getting a day job because obviously you have to make the finances work. And I realized that with this part, if I my strategy was I ended up quitting the day job completely and then moving in with family to make it work. I was like, the last time it didn't work out because I couldn't pull in enough finances to meet the cost of living. This time I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do it as a temporary thing. It's going to be a 1-year strategy of cut down finances and then do this as part of my daily and consistent routine. I've learned so much from it. My writing business, the Creative Ghost, is my primary job. This is my primary job, and this is what I'm focused on. So absolutely, if you want to support me, come hire me for some of these writing services. You can also go tip me over at Buy Me a Coffee. That's listed down in the YouTube description below. You would spend $5 to $10 on a Starbucks, and that lasts you for what, an hour, a few hours. Tip me for $5, $10. That would really support me. Go check out my website, The Creative Ghost. I offer book editing, writer coaching, and now and ghostwriting, and now a brand new service, alpha and beta reading, which is exactly what I do on the Story Critique Show. It's all down in the YouTube video description if you want to know more about it. So that would be really awesome. Thanks for asking that, Nell. I really appreciate that. And I think also following up with that, I think I stay consistent because I'm just motivated. I've got into a point where I want to say a month in, where just like the streams itself has become part of my daily routine. And I get so motivated by the storytelling portion of Last Scarecrow. And the other half of it is I get motivated by each of you who show up, the ones that I see time and time again, Marcella, Nil, Dana, John, Bethany, Mommy Tally, LeMay, each of you who either, whether or not you're still here in the stream, I get motivated by the conversations and the stories that you share. So that's another thing that really helps keep me motivated, and just building a writing community, which really, really helps and provides value for writers. So thank you all for joining me on this journey so far. Let's see, Marcella. I didn't really write this sprint. I've been brainstorming possible character arcs with ChatGPT for book 2. And I'm designing sweaters, the grandmother of my Barbie, like dolls, playmate, handmade for her. That's awesome. So it sounds like you're getting some brainstorming for a couple of different arcs, which is super awesome. Let's see, they're thematically important for her. These dolls' clothes in general are pretty important for them. And I think having the character designs are so important, especially for if you're for advertising and creating your website and getting people towards your story to eventually buy your book. I think that's really cool, Marcella, that you're putting so much design into the character models, because that's what's going to pull people in. That is so cool. I continue to be inspired by what you're doing with your storytelling. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, what's up, Pigeon? Welcome to the stream, my friend. We just got through a writing sprint. We made some great progress. I made incredible progress with my story, Last Scarecrow, today. Made some incredible progress, probably at 82% now. My 2 main characters, I just had the height of one of my supporting characters, Pebble the Pixie. I had a huge emotional moment with her. Oh, my heart's still beating, because when you write like a really good scene and you're just happy with it, like obviously later on I could edit it. There's things I can do to make it better. I know that, but I'm just like, what I came out with was how I envisioned it, and I'm just so happy. And then I had a great conversation with Pat today for about the mental health conversation, and that was an incredible conversation. So today's stream has been absolutely phenomenal. Let's see, Nell. Wow, I had no idea. I'm rooting for you even. Aw, thanks so much, Nell. Yeah, it's it's hard, right? It was definitely difficult to do something, like I said, very crazy. And not everyone's able to do this, right? A lot of people have responsibilities and family responsibilities. And a lot of people can't do what I did and just quitting the stuff completely. It was difficult from an emotional and a mental health standpoint. But what I came down to was this: if I got hit by a bus tomorrow and I died, I would not regret this part of my journey at all. And that's become part of my approach with life, in that I want to minimize the amount of regret that I have at this part of my life. And I think creating a writing business, trying to connect with every writer in the world, is part of that journey. There's been highs and lows of this entire experience. There's things that work out well, things that are a struggle, but regardless of all the downside, everything was worth it. And I'm going to enjoy the journey. I hope I'm successful. I feel motivated that this writing company will be a huge success, but I'm focused on enjoying the journey and not letting the end result affect my overall self-esteem and motivation. So it's been an experience for sure. But I mean, I've learned so much from this, and I've met so many cool writers just from 6 months. And then, so for those of you who don't know, Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, actually, I think it's actually tomorrow. Tomorrow is exactly halfway. Tomorrow is exactly halfway through my 1-year journey of writing and live streaming every single day. Tomorrow marks day 180. I think it's like 180 or 181 or 182. But tomorrow marks the halfway point of 180 consecutive writing live streams. So I feel very proud. And for those of you who are here, we're actually going to be doing a huge celebration next week. So this is my first announcement. I haven't created any promo for it yet. I'm going to be doing it a little later. Wednesday, July 3rd, I'm going to be attempting the first 6-hour writing stream. I'm sharing this with those of you who are here. On Wednesday, I'm going to be having an all-day writers event called the Epic 6-Hour Holiday Write-a-thon. I've invited all of my podcast guests. So far, I have about 8 to 10 different writers. I'm going to be doing different games, different activities. I have 3 big announcements to share with the community about the future of this channel and my writing brand. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different writing topics. It's a 6-hour stream this Wednesday, July 3rd. So come join me. I'm celebrating the just my progress with this daily writing goal. And I'm going to be writing the climax of Last Scarecrow. Let me repeat. For those of you who've been joining me over the last 6 months, I'm going to be writing the climax of Last Scarecrow. So highly encourage you to join if you want to know what's going to happen with our Scarecrow. And finally, his confrontation with the first demon. So I'm going to be writing the climax. I have some big announcements. We're going to be doing writing games, and I'm bringing on a bunch of my previous podcast guests back. We're going to be chatting about writing, where I got so much packed, so much. I'll throw up the promo for it either later today or tomorrow, but I'm just letting those of you know, make sure you have the bell notification turned on for my YouTube channel, so you'll be alerted when I go live. But we'll be going live all day Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, July 3rd. I am super stoked for it. This is going to be a great live stream. And I still have no clue if I'm going to be able to talk for 6 hours straight, but we're about to find out. So Wednesday is going to be a super cool live stream. And that brings me to, as I look towards next week. So next week's going to be an interesting week, what with it being the 4th of July in the US. The rest of the days are probably going to be light writing sprints. Monday, Tuesday, and Monday and Tuesday are going to be full-on writing sessions because I want Last Scarecrow needs to get, I'm going to get the story right to the place of the beginning of the climax scene. So that's going to be my focus the next 2 days. Wednesday, 6-hour epic 6-hour holiday write-a-thon. So there's so much going on with that. So make sure you're there. And then Thursday and Friday, so I can give myself a little bit of a vacation. I'm going to be doing some intermittent vertical live streams. So I'm going to do a couple writing sprints. They're going to be unplanned, but so I can still stay on my goal of writing every day. So Thursday and Friday are going to be very light days. And then Saturday, I'll be back for our story and critique show. And Sunday, we'll do another story time episode. I'm going to take a break from podcasting for next week, and we'll come back the following week with my first ever writing. Like, we're going to be doing our first ever Create Right Now podcast with a writing group. That's going to be an experience. So more to come on that one. And if you're looking for something to watch next, down in the playlist, down in the YouTube description, is I have the creative. I've actually renamed the podcast Create Right Now. So down in the YouTube description, there's a link to one of the previous episodes of the Create Right Now podcast for publishing your book. I sat down and chatted with Yasmin with the Writing Ghost. Phenomenal. If you're planning on publishing your book eventually, you should definitely check out that podcast episode. I learned so much from Yasmin. She's incredible. So definitely make sure you check that out. Awesome. And then what do we got? Let's see, Pigeon. I've been thinking of starting to write some stuff I want. Yeah, Pigeon, you should absolutely write some stuff. We're here writing every single day. If you ever need motivation, come write with us. Absolutely. But the issue is actually language and time to me start writing books. Well, okay, so two separate things, right? So language, first off, like if you should write in your native tongue, like you should write whatever your native language is, just to make it easier. However, if you want to write in English, I would say make sure you're leveraging tools like ChatGPT to help you with getting word choice and help you with better refining it. Make sure you're leveraging alpha and beta readers. So that way the sections you read, that can help make sure that it captures an English audience. In terms of time, it's based off however much time you have. My suggestion is make it simple. Commit to writing twice a week, whether those are like really easy sprints, like do like twice a week, maybe like 20 to 30 minutes each. Set a very easy goal for yourself. You can come join us for the writing sprints. Go do it yourself on your own time, but just make an easy commitment. You know what your schedule is like. Pick 2 days that work for you this week and then commit to those days. And then if you don't feel like writing when you want to sit down and write, think about what is the reason that you want to write, motivate yourself, and just write whatever comes out. That would be my recommendation. Aw, thanks so much, Marcella. I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's been quite a journey for sure. Packing lunch. Yes. Our Wednesday live stream is going to be fire. This is going to be like the 6-hour live stream, the epic 6-hour holiday write-a-thon this Wednesday is going to be one of my biggest live stream events that I've ever tried before. I've seen the format work for other genres. So I have a lot of different strategies I'm going to try, but like there's a lot. I got like 20 things packed into 6 hours. So guests, games, climax of my story, announcements. What more can you want from a 6-hour writing live stream? So make sure that you tune in on Wednesday. I'll be creating the promo later today. So I'll make sure I'll start advertising that today or tomorrow. So super cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's super cool. Oh, and I even forgot, I'm going to be doing a discount. I'm going to be doing another holiday discount on my writing services. Yeah, I guess that's important. I need to make money. So I'll also be doing a discount on some of my writing services. More to come. I'll be announcing that on Wednesday as well, on July 3rd. So super excited. Clearly next week, both a huge week, and then I'll be taking a little bit of a mini vacation, pseudo vacation on Thursday, Friday. So I can spend some time with family. Let's see. Language is not a big of an issue, just time is, and like mental stuff and work. Yeah, I get that. Which is why I'm always pitching, just make it super easy. Make a very easy goal for yourself to write, even if it's writing twice for 5 minutes a week. I would rather that you sit down and you write for 10 minutes once a month than sitting down and writing for 0 minutes forever. I'm of the mindset if you make it as easy as possible, then you can fit it into your lifestyle. So that would be my recommendation. Like, I hope that helps out a little bit. If you ever need other like strategies, you're always more than welcome to join us. We're writing every day. Pigeon, make sure that you're following me over on Twitch, And if you're following me, you'll see when I go live every day. I post my live stream schedule on Twitch and all my social channels. I'm on YouTube, Facebook are my biggest ones, and then Twitch, X, and LinkedIn. I post my live stream schedule on Monday, the week of whatever my live stream schedule is. So make sure you're followed, and that way you can come join us if you need like writing motivation. Hey, what's up, Akio? Glad to see you here, my friend. Welcome, welcome. Dang, new drip. You know what? Mixing it up. You know, actually, it's because I'm at a studio this week. I'm I know it's not my usual background for my studio, but you know, still pulling off the classy hat. I'll be back in the studio on probably on Tuesday. So I'll be back in my normal studio where we can have the cool my writing setup. So yeah, but it works. I'm like clearly the background doesn't matter all too much. Let's see, cult topic. Fun fact on the topic of ChatGPT translating. It's not true translation, but a fun thing I've done is convert English to Japanese with, say, Ego. It's like English spoken with Japanese letters. That's actually really interesting, Colt. That's really interesting to know. And I could speak to a lot of like the social media or a lot of the social media platforms like YouTube, for instance. One of YouTube's huge goals that they're working on right now is creating auto translations using AI to put it out to an international audience. So that's like one of the big tools and things that YouTube's focused on, because I think the stat is like 50, it might be like 60% of traffic to YouTube, which let's remember, YouTube is the biggest video platform in the entire world because it is owned by Google. Biggest video platform in the entire world. YouTube is, like I said, 50-60% is an international market outside the US market. Right now, YouTube is focused on using I think it's some type of AI algorithm to provide to auto translate stuff. So I know that's like something that's being worked on, something that's coming soon. So it's like when I think about what big companies are working on, and then clearly there's the thing. So all the companies are working on improving these AI algorithms and things to improve user experience. Nancy Pigeon, but I really want to write a lot of stuff because I already have the concept for the books, especially the book I named 998 Eyes. Ooh, that's interesting. That's a really interesting title, which I really want to start writing. That Pigeon, you should definitely start writing. What I would recommend is like start writing whatever scene inspires you the most. So like think of like what's like the scene out of the whole thing. Sometimes some people start at the beginning, some people start in the middle. Think of the one scene that inspires you the most. So then when you pick that time to write next week or when your schedule permits, you can sit down and then you just have to imagine and visualize like what's that scene that really motivates me. Essentially, you want to use your motivation. You want to use the inspiration of your love for your story to overcome the negative stuff of feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't write. I am of the belief that positive emotion trumps negative every single time. That's what I would say. I'm really inspired, but I have no mouth, but I must scream on much darker books or topics. Absolutely. And I mean, Pigeon, there's an audience and there's a niche for everything. Like there's even the really dark stuff. Like when you think about like horror, when you think about gore, blood, when you think about taboo topics, there's a niche for taboo. There's a niche for horror. There's a niche for gore. There's a niche for dark romance. There's a niche for all the different things. It's just figuring out what it is that you want to write and then going out there and finding your readership. That's really all that it is. The darker the topic and the more taboo the subject is, the more that you're going to have to look a little deeper for your niche. But the interest is there. And all it takes is a few Google searches to find out what where your readership is for that market. So I really hope you're able to write. You probably have some really cool stuff to write about because that sounds like a really interesting story. Akia, thank you, sir, for not joining in a while. I kind of stopped using this account because I was busy. Akia, you're totally all good. No worries. I'm glad to see you back in the stream, my friend. We've since I think I last saw you, what was that, like a month or two ago? I mean, the channel's very much blown up. It's continuing to grow. My YouTube channel just crossed 300 a couple of days ago. which I'm like super proud of. My Facebook channel is definitely growing. So we're getting there. I mean, I'll be here, we'll be here, and our writing community is definitely growing. Today's probably been one of our most popular podcast episodes for sure. But I'm glad to have you back in, Akia. Let's see. When applied to text to speech, it sounds like Japanese accented English. Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where like AI is still little early on. So like some things work well, others don't. But it just give it time, and the AI algorithms, like they're just going to be farther along the more time there is. Hey, what's up, Curlia? Welcome to the stream, my friend. Thanks for dropping by. We're literally just kind of having some little, just like random writing chat right now. I'm curious, what are you working on? Are you a writer? Pigeon, I do really want my books to not have actually characters, everything being in first person. The reader can insert themselves in the book. I do really want my books to not have actual characters, everything being in first person. Okay, so I mean, like there's definitely a way to go about first person books. I mean, I think the way that's usually I think that strategy is doing you would still have a main point of view character, but you would make them a very neutral character. You would make them you basically want the main character to feel like either this always happens with stories where the character wakes up and they don't remember anything. This happens a lot of times in comedy shows where the main character is just very bland. So because your goal is you want your readership and your audience to put themselves into the mindset of this reader or into the mindset of this character. By making the main character kind of a neutral standpoint, then it allows you to perceive the world through that character, and then you get to make all your own judgments about the world. That's absolutely a strategy. That'd be really cool. I'm sure you would have a lot of success with that. Oh, I'm not a writer. Oh, well, welcome. Glad you were able to hop in here. It's interesting with Twitch. I think with Twitch, I get kind of a mix of writers. Obviously, Twitch is obviously a gaming community predominantly. Yeah, and I think I want to say with Twitch, I get like 70% writers and then just 30% miscellaneous. Correlia, we actually did a really great conversation today about mental health. Definitely make sure you check out the replay, because I sat down and chatted with Pat Olney, who is a published author, and we had a really great conversation about mental health. So that was really awesome. But glad to have you here, my friend. Make sure you're following, and you'll be alerted when I go live. We go live daily. Awesome. And let's see. So we're at about over the 2-hour mark. So this is that time where I'm going to say, don't forget to tap that like button on your way out. Let me know that you got value out of the stream. Help us show the algorithms that writing streams are cool. I'm at 180 days of live writing, of consecutive live writing streams. We got many more to come and much more stuff coming, especially next week will be exciting. So tap that like button. I appreciate you. And that, my friends, is all that I got for you today. I'll be back live tomorrow. I'll probably go a 3 p.m. Mountain. So it'll be 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern time for some more casual writing sprints. Monday is always a great day, the start of the week, for us to just catch up on, get a little bit of writing done, especially for those of you in the US who are probably taking the rest of the week off with the holiday. So I'll be back tomorrow. And that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget to like the stream on your way out. And don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.